Congratulations! You made the Varsity, the podcast. My name is John Aranda, and I'm Puck's sports correspondent and the host of this pod. ESPN's Ramona Shelburne joins the Varsity today. Ramona broke the biggest sports business story of the year on Wednesday, that Bob Iger and Josh Kushner are buying the Lakers from Mark Walter for an unbelievable amount of money, $12.5 billion. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that today, Sunday, August 16th. Now, I wrote a story in my private email about that $12.5 billion price tag. The finance guys and the bankers that I talk to, they think team prices are going to keep going up, and that's because private equity and venture capitalists are getting more involved in buying teams. It's an exclusive club, and a lot of rich people want to get involved. But media executives are warning that these valuations are going too high, especially if they're based on future media revenue. The media business, after all, is challenged. It's contracting. It's different in LA, of course. The NBA is only 1 year into an 11-year media deal that pays out $76 billion. And sports in LA, it's going to pay the Lakers upwards of $200 million per year for the local media rights. As one media executive told me, it's going to be a great business for the next 10 years. After that, who knows? As for now, let's get to ESPN's Ramona Shelburne. Ramona, first of all, thank you for joining the pod. What a week you had. You broke, to me, one of the most surprising stories I've. I was sitting in LAX, the Los Angeles airport, and I noticed on the Puck's Slack channel, somebody was like, "Oh, Iger is buying the Lakers." And I wish there was a video camera on me because I think my jaw might have hit the floor with that. And so I want to go sort of, I grew up in newspapers. I'm an old reporter. How did you get this story? Like, how did it come about? Take us through sort of your reporting process before we talk about sort of what it means for the Lakers and for the NBA and all of that.
Um, this was a very interesting story in that I think for the past, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks, I had been trying to understand what was going on in the federal case against Mark Walter, who's I guess, the now former chairman. I guess he's still the chairman of the Lakers until the sale goes through. Um, but I was trying to understand the DOJ case against him. I mean, it's hard as a sports reporter. We have to educate ourselves on tax law or medical issues or all sorts of things. So I have this line. I'm like, I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV sometimes. So I was kind of digging into what was going on in the DOJ case. We had all finally come up for air a little bit from the season, and LeBron had finally made his decision, a little more bandwidth to start digging in on this. And as I was, calling people in the industry and in and around basketball, but also just in the business community and things like that to try to understand what was going on with Mark. You just that a lot of the people I was talking to um, are help me understand that. I think that kind of put me in a more unique position to break this, right. You're kind of you're looking in the right areas, and uh, what I was trying to understand was essentially like what were these charges against Mark, and where was this coming from. And it's very complicated. I still don't fully understand it, right? I was still in the process of calling lawyers and legal people who can help me understand it. But um, I think I read headlines, and what was interesting is, clearly Josh Kushner and Bob Iger do too, because it created a unique set of circumstances where they felt it was worth a call to Mark Walter to see if he'd be interested in selling. I want to be clear. No one that I had called said Mark is going to need to sell. I never thought that was happening, right? It was just, we were just trying to understand, like, how big a deal is this? What does this entail? Wrap your head around even where this was. But people in that world were, helpful. But it took me a minute to make headway in that. And then what night was it? What day is it today? I don't even know. Okay, so Tuesday night, which is a funny night because my oldest was going back to school in the morning. So we had gone to like orientation on Tuesday, and then we were getting him ready for school, and we'd get to bed early and stuff. So I happened to get a call around 9:30, and somebody said, "Are you sitting down?" And I go, "What do you mean?" Like, I said, I think Mark might have sold the Lakers." I was like, "Wait, what? Uh, are, what Mark might have, what, selling the Lakers?" No one ever thought that was on the table. Like, we were just trying to understand what he was dealing with, and um, I thought I was early on it. I thought sold or was going to sell. Like, it was something that I needed to follow up with. It was late at night, and I clearly, when you get some kind of tip like that, you follow up on it immediately. That's a send out as many texts as you can, but it's very late. I mean, West Coast time, it wasn't that late, but around the league and the world and the country, it's late. And so I went to bed that night not really knowing if I was right or where we were in this. But it was one of those sleep with your phone on your head nights. Like, I might get a very early text or a call or whatever it is. And that was an early call. I actually missed the first text because it came at 4:30 and I kind of didn't see it or didn't hear it. Like, you have even if you have your phone on, like, if it's not an alarm, you can sleep through it. But I had set an alarm for 6 just to make sure I got up. And then I was, kind of right to it. I did not realize it was that close or that it was already done the night before. But it was kind of mind blowing. Like, we're on Friday now. I still can't believe that that this is actually real, that it happened, that it's going to keep happening, and this is the new reality in LA.
You have the Knicks, you have the Lakers. Maybe you put the Celtics in there, but it's a very few teams. It would be as though we end this pod and we find out that Jerry Jones has sold, his everything to Elon Musk or something like that. Sold the Cowboys. Um,
Totally.
what what I find, so there's so many aspects of this story that just really are surprising,
Mhm.
and the first is it wasn't for sale. It was almost like a cold call, and he took it. How much more would they have gotten in an open bidding process? I mean, why wouldn't he take this, Mark Walter, take this and say, "Oh, well, I have you on the hook for 12. Let's see if I can gin up something even more than that." There was no like clear. It's just seemed very, very rushed to me. This is not how team sales often go.
Yeah, and I don't think it was. Well, first of all, it was a expiring offer because they made the call. It was literally it was a cold call. Like, it wasn't. It was just a let's check, and they had read headlines, right? And so there's just savvy businessmen. They understand he might be, he might be in a bit of financial situation where he would make sense for him to um, have some liquidity. It was just, I think they were kind of guessing at it, and the Journal has done a lot of good reporting on this. I think was it Wednesday that they had a story? So it was the same day of the sale, or the same day that went through, or the reporting came out on the sale. They had a story saying that he had been um, calling people. I think I want to make sure I say it right because it's their reporting. There was a story about that he was trying to raise money. Uh, Clearly that means you need liquidity, right? It'll take loans to get liquidity. So maybe that had been out in the business community. I hadn't gotten that far in my reporting yet. I mean, it's hard as a sports reporter because you don't have those financial sources that somebody from the Journal does or Bloomberg. They've done a great job reporting on the whole story with Mark. Um, but again, nobody had ever thought he was going to unload the Lakers, right? Like, taking loans or getting money, that's a whole different thing than selling the crown jewel of the NBA that you just bought ten months ago. But I do think it was an like an expiring offer because Iger and Kushner were deeply enmeshed in the expansion process. I don't know exactly where they were in position to buy the Vegas team, but they were clearly in a strong position. I've had other people tell me they might have been the leader there. Um, and there's a lot of other groups there still. Bill Lowry's group. and Foley's group. There's a Magic Johnson group. There's a lot of other people who are bidding on Vegas right now. We all thought that would come in about 6 to 8 billion, but I heard it had gotten up north of that, closer to the 10 billion that Mark had valued the Lakers at when he bought them last year. And it just if you're going to pay 10 billion, you got to think about why you're doing that for an expansion team. And this fund they have, which is Thrive Eternal, this is something that was started in May of I think of this year, and then Thrive obviously has been around for a long time. But their brand, which is Iger has taken a big role in that. Their brand is restoring iconic franchises and this and that. So an expansion team is not exactly on brand. Now, Thrive Eternal is also the one that had been involved with the FIFA, with trying to privatize FIFA. There was clearly a lot of cash that had been raised to try to do that. I'm trying to remember the reporting on that. Was it 4.5 billion or something had been raised to do that. So they had financing lined up. I mean, that's the analogy I keep using is it's like you're buying a house. You've already got your loans in order. You've already got your financing in order. You got your down payment. You're ready to go, and you like one house, and maybe you're even in escrow, or you're thinking about making an offer, and then you drive by another open house and prefer that one. So you're sort of, it's a quick pivot. And they had to know pretty quickly. I think the first call was on Sunday. Initially, my reporting is that Mark said no, the team's not for sale, but the seed had been planted. And when they called back a few hours later, he had been thinking about it. Like, I don't think it was something he had thought about before. And then he'd been thinking about it. They raised their offer and he took it. I don't think it was as emotional of a decision as one might think. Mark is a businessman. He looked at the return, and people, we all do the math like, oh, it's a $2.5 billion profit. That's just a $2.5 billion difference in valuation. His profit is actually going to be closer to 4 billion because he owned 26% of the team at a $5 billion valuation. So if you look at when he bought his first shares, then when he purchased the larger chunk that gave him the controlling share from the Bus family at 10 billion, the accumulation of those shares was done at two different values. And so it's a hell of a return, right? I don't think that was the intention. It clearly wasn't, in terms of their actions and how they had been Dodgerizing the Lakers. They had been investing a lot of money in building out the team and changing all their operations. And so it's people there are still kind of wrapping their heads around, wow, it's like they just changed contractors mid-build, right?
Yeah, Dodgerizing the Lakers. I happened to be on Tuesday, as you were knee deep in this story. I was at Dodger Stadium, and I did take notice. We had a conversation about this. You walk through Dodger Stadium and you saw Lakers pictures and Lakers logos, and you could see that they were sister companies. Basically, they had the same owner. No Rams logos anywhere to be seen. No Chargers logos any of the other LA teams. But
Yeah.
there was certainly it certainly was the Lakerizing of Dodger Stadium, or they were being combined.
Mhm.
I know that everybody has
Lakers
come
even
out
stole
and
their
said that
theme
the
song.
Dodgers are not for
Like,
sale. One week ago, we would have said that the Lakers are not for sale. How serious? Like, are the Dodgers for sale? Like, what do you think?
I don't think the Dodgers are for sale. But I don't think this will stop anybody from calling. I mean, if I'm a billionaire, which I mean that would be a nice life, okay, but and I see that he unexpectedly sold the Lakers and they weren't for sale either. I'm sure he's getting a lot of interesting calls. Um, but again, I want to say they're not for sale. That wasn't the intention. Nobody, like, again, in my reporting the last 3 4 weeks, like, no one had said Mark has to sell. Like, I don't think he's in that position where he has to sell. But when you do it once, people are going to call. It's really interesting to think about what the Dodgers would be valued at because, like, I've been in LA my whole life. Okay, so and especially career wise, Mark really started this expansion of franchise values. This exponential growth in franchise values when he bought the Dodgers in 2012 for $2.15 billion. Do you remember this? He bought Dodger Stadium and the Dodgers for $2.15 billion from Frank McCourt. And everyone thought he was crazy. And Mark, I've talked to him many times about this, and he said, I thought they were totally undervalued. I thought I got a steal. I mean, this is a great investment. And one of the guys who had worked on that, David Blitzer, was a really smart guy. He's in the Philly ownership now. He had hammered home about how valuable those broadcast rights were because the local broadcast rights were opening up. The Dodgers and Lakers obviously have that giant deal. Here it's called Spectrum. I think they're owned by Charter now. At the time, it was Time Warner. I mean, it's changed hands many times over. I don't think there are really local TV deals like that around anymore or going forward. But those deals were absolutely massive revenue streams for the franchises that proved Mark 100% right in saying that 2.15 billion was undervalue for the Dodgers. But let's do the math. Okay, look at the bell curve. 2012 Dodgers sell for 2.15, and remember that's also Dodger Stadium, which is really important. Frank McCourt still owns the parking lots, of course. It's funny. It's a joke everyone makes in LA, but it's also true and it's funny. Um, they,
The parking lots that
but
nobody can get
Mark bought
out
all
of,
the.
right?
There's
It
a
takes
lot
like
of
hours
land.
to exit the parking lots.
Yeah, I know, but Dodger Stadium is very valuable. I mean, that's and for a lot of years, Mark also bought a lot of the land around Dodger Stadium that came with the sale. And if you think about that land, I mean, you've been to LA, John. That's incredibly valuable land, and there's always been talk of, I think Frank's involved in trying to do the gondola up to Dodger Stadium. That's I don't know where that stands in terms of getting approved, but it's a big project here in LA. But that land, if you developed the Chavez Ravine area, it's a developer's dream, but it's hard to get anything done here in Los Angeles, and it's a big project. But I think for years, Mark was trying to develop that land and build this giant complex, kind of similar to what you've seen been done at SoFi Stadium. And Intuit Dome and all that area around there. But this is prime real estate near downtown LA. It's 10 minutes from downtown, and that was just an incredible buy. Okay, but that's 2012. 2014, the LA Clippers go for $2 billion to Steve Ballmer. Makes everyone's head explode. Wow, how could the Clippers be worth $2 billion?
I
Like,
wrote
remember?
a ton of stories talking about what a moron Ballmer is. How could he, like, what a terrible deal that is. And I think they're now valued at
Yeah,
what,
I
5
remember
billion, 7
reporting on this.
billion?
Yeah. So Donald Sterling thought Ballmer was an idiot because who keeps $2 billion in cash, right? Like, right? Who keeps that much money just in cash instead of investing it or having it work for you? That was a hell of a buy. Think about that. Just for the Clippers. Then the Suns are sold sort of under duress, right? Sarver has to sell to Matt Ishbia $4 billion just a few years later. And then 2 years ago, the Celtics go for 6. So now look at this bell curve: 2, 4, 6, 10 when the Lakers sell. And now we're at $12.5 billion valuation. This bell curve is like that. And it started with Mark Walter, right? And I think I don't know where it stops. I really don't. It's when the Seahawks broke all the records just a couple of months ago. What was that? 9.6? Is that right?
Yeah.
Um, I, we thought, oh, an NFL team. Okay, if the Seahawks are not, what are the Cowboys? I mean, I don't think Jerry's selling, but every owner in every professional sports has to be looking at these values, going, I wonder what I could get for my team, because this bell curve is amazing.
Yeah, I will tell you, I just did a story in my email on Thursday where, the bankers and the owners are so excited. I mean, of course, why wouldn't you be? Look at this.
Of course.
The media company executives I talked to were like, if they're basing these valuations over media revenues continuing to rise like they are, it might be an unsafe bet to make right now
Yep.
because, as we all know,
Yep.
cord cutting is happening. I know the NBA is unique because it's 1 year into a $76 billion deal, and the Lakers are
Mhm.
unique because Spectrum's is paying them upwards of $200 million a year for the local rights, unheard of for a basketball
Yeah.
team and for their local rights. So they're doing okay.
Okay, well,
I
let's.
want to ask you. You mentioned you're from LA. You're
Yeah.
you're in LA through and through. The Almost every time I've gone to a Lakers game at crypto.com or the Staples Center,
Mhm.
I've run across Bob Iger. He's a fan. He's sort of part of the fabric there.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of owner do you expect him to be? Do you expect him to be somebody who is really influential and powerful at the league level? Do you expect him to be more like kind of like a Mark Cuban person? He is like coming from a media background. Do you expect him to be sort of
Yeah.
like in the background? Nobody expects Bob Iger to be in the background, but you've
Yeah.
spoken to him, and you know what his thoughts are about the team. How do you expect him to be as an owner?
Um, Bob was a Clippers season ticket holder for many years. I think that ended before last year. Okay, and it's really funny. That's how I first introduced myself to him. First of all, Bob Iger was my boss ever since I've been at ESPN. Okay, but Disney owns ESPN. Um, and I remember, as a reporter, sometimes like our job is literally to just go up to everybody and say hello. Like you can't be shy. Um, so I just went up to him one day. I mean, I've tried to, I go up to him respectfully, right? But, and you don't ask for an autograph or anything, but you just say hello. He's a sports fan. He was courtside for all that Lob City era. That's how he got to be really good friends with Chris Paul. Chris has reached out to, at that point Chris kind of wanted him to mentor him, and Bob obviously gets a lot of people who want him to mentor them, but he liked Chris pretty quickly, and then I think they've kept a real genuine friendship. Like it's not just it's evolved over the years, right? He wasn't just cheering for him as a player. They became very good friends. They went on socially distant walks during the pandemic, and that's a big reason why we had the bubble, why it was at Disney World. And then they obviously worked very closely with Adam Silver to make that happen. But let's also go back to when Bob was a part of the ownership group, or the whole group that was trying to bring the NFL to Los Angeles. He was involved with the group in Carson that was trying to bring the Raiders and the Chargers to LA. And then Jerry Jones kind of outmaneuvered everybody. He kind of flipped sides and swung the balance of power, and the stadium got built down there at SoFi with Stan Kroenke, and the Chargers owners kind of partnered up and did that one. Um, there was a yeah. I think they played their cards well with Jerry and Legends, and it's a very interesting business story. There's been talk of Bob as an NFL commissioner, so he's very deeply uh, involved in the sports world. I think there was even I heard his name a lot with the LA Olympics last year as the situation with Casey Wasserman was unfolding, and there was a question of would Casey continue. It's part of LA 28. So he's a sports guy, man. He's really interested in sports, but he's also retired, and retired twice. Like this is it's very Michael Jordanish, right? He retired a couple times, um, but he really was that legendary of an executive, and I expect he will be the same kind of owner that he was as an executive, which I think he'll be a CEO, a chairman type. I don't think he's going to be Mark Cuban cheering. I saw him at Clipper games. He was not loud. He clapped, but he was. There's no comparison with him and Steve Ballmer as fans sitting courtside. But I think he'll be a relationship guy. I think he'll have great relationships with the star players, with the business community. I think he'll be a great CEO type of it as an owner, chairman. I don't know Josh. I've heard people describe him to me. He's 41. I think he lives in Los Angeles. No, he's not from here, but he lives here. I think he's energetic. I think he'll be more involved in this. I think clearly you're spending a lot of money to be a part of this. You're a sports fan. I think he'll be more involved that way I think he'll be the chairman of the controlling owner here. And it's interesting because we just went from family ownership for decades to this nicely choreographed transition to Mark Walter. And you pointed out all the synergy between the Lakers and the Dodgers, and just very abruptly two completely new people coming into town. And I know Bob gave a quote to the California Post that Jeannie will stay in her role, but there was a hedge in that quote. You know, if things change, they'll change. I don't see them changing right away. I think he's, he does have a relationship with Jeannie Buss. I think he values the connective tissue of having someone from the previous ownership who really knows the Laker brand. But will she be the controlling owner? I doubt that. I doubt. I mean, Josh is going to be the controlling owner eventually. It's just a question of when and how does that look. I do think Jeannie will still be involved with the Lakers in a very forward facing capacity though. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and what the timeline of this is, because we're at the beginning. They have to prove them still. I expect that'll happen. They already have their financing lined up, but um, it'll be a wild couple of months here.
Another Los Angeles surprise to me, Lakers surprise to me. I had just assumed that LeBron was going to be ending his career in LA with the Lakers, and I was reading all the reports that he was looking to go elsewhere, but until he finally actually left the Lakers, I thought he was going to return to the Lakers.
Mhm.
Why didn't he stay in Los Angeles?
Um, we all were like that too, John. I'm on LA radio all the time. I host a lot of shows on the ESPN affiliate here. I guest host, and all year long we were like, you know what? He seems like he's staying. He's accepted the third banana role, and then when they needed him, he stepped into the lead dog role, and his son's on the team. So I think we all connected those dots and thought, whatever awkwardness there is, he's gotten over it. He's played through it. They've all figured things out. But after reporting on this and after looking at it in the rearview mirror, I think I would go as far as to say he knew the last game that he played at crypto.com that it was his last game as a Laker. And I know he said in his quote that he thought he was going to retire after that game, or he felt like he might retire. I don't know if I believe he felt like he would retire. I think you always feel like that at the end of a long season because you know how much it takes to go in there. But because he's felt like that before, right? There was a couple years ago when they lost to the Nuggets, he had a quote like that, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, what if he just retires?" I think that's just more the fatigue of the end of the season, but I think he absolutely knew he was done as a Laker that night. And it was, I remember I was there in their building, I was there in the locker room. There were two people there that tipped me off that something big was not as we had assumed, and that was Lynn Merritt, as the former president of Nike, who was one of the LeBron's biggest mentors. He's retired. I think he still kind of consults for them, but he's an absolute legend um, in the shoe industry, and especially as an important figure in LeBron's career. Lynn lives in Portland on a winery, okay, or just outside of Portland. He doesn't leave very often, right? He doesn't go to games anymore. He doesn't leave this nice retired life he has, and he was there for that game. And I thought, like, would he come if there wasn't a chance that LeBron was going to retire or that he was out in LA? And then Adam Mendelson, who has been his longtime strategist, his communication strategist. Adam was there, and LeBron doesn't. I mean, Adam's there sometimes, but that night he was very forward facing. I saw him before the game. I saw him after the game, before LeBron did his press conferences. And then LeBron gave hugs to everybody in the locker room, and it was the way he said goodbye to Austin Reeves. I was like, huh. Like, this isn't just I'm hugging you in case you leave or I leave. This was like a real, we were probably done as teammates. And people around the LeBron camp have kind of subsequently said they realized at that night too that his time in LA was probably over, because I just think while he put on a good face and he bought into the role eventually, the third banana role next to Luca and Austin, I just don't think that's who he is. He's not a secondary player. He's a leading man. And It's they have a new superstar. They just do. It's not his team anymore. It's not being built around him. It's not he's not a complementary piece really even to Luca. They figured out how to play together because they respect each other, but they're not this is just not how that team should be built. And somebody with the Lakers used a phrase with me, and I think that was really a good read. They said, "Look, there's a curse of incumbency here. If the Lakers offered him a pay cut, it's a or a lesser contract, even if it was like 25 million a year, he would still see it as a giant pay cut. He would see it as, wow, you don't value me like you did before. Whereas another team who could only offer him the minimum, or let's say Golden State could have given him 15, he would say, oh, they're giving me as much as they can, right? It just would feel different if it was somewhere else. They would recruit him, whereas the Lakers would be just kind of bringing themselves to keep him or finding, it just feels differently. And I understand the wanting to be wanted, wanting to be recruited. That matters for a guy like LeBron, who's still an incredible player. He's still really good. Like I know he's older, but he was I think did he lead the league in fast break points last year, or finished third somewhere around in there? He's still really good, and it takes a lot for him to be that good. And so I think I don't think he wanted to play that role anymore. And I get it. We all get it. He's LeBron James. He's the self-declared king, right? And that was his name for himself, and we all taken him to calling that. But it's I understand it. Whether you want to call it ego or whatever, like there's a reason he became who he is, and it's because of the self-belief.
So LeBron then, as everybody knows, went and signed with the 76ers very late in the situation, so that we finally got the NBA schedule just this week.
Yeah.
And there probably isn't a superstar on the Sixers like Luca, but there are a lot of, like, he's not going to be the go-to person on the Sixers. You
No.
have Brown, you have Maxey. That's a I was going to say VJ, but
Yeah.
LeBron's probably above him in the pecking order. He went to a place where he potentially is not going to be the leading man. Does that surprise you?
Not. I was surprised. I really thought he was going to Miami. We all had got all the smoke signals in the days leading up to it. Uh, we all thought Miami. There was a lot of smoke there, and so I was prepared. I was kind of wrapping my head around the idea of him and Giannis, and I think it was just based on basketball fit. And he and Riley had made up enough. It didn't seem like that was an issue. But the basketball fit in Miami was really interesting, especially defensively. And flat out, Miami needed him. Like, I know Giannis is Giannis, but it would be Giannis controlling the ball, bringing it up the whole time, and then LeBron in the fourth quarter. And I think the thing that I noticed with both of I would call them the two finalists, whether it's Philly and Miami. I think those are the top two when it was all done. It was really that they all need him. Whether he's the leading man, they need his experience. They need his gravitas. Like Maxi's, it's clearly his team. Embiid has won MVPs, but none of them have won before. Okay, they have not gotten over that second round of the playoff hump, and in those moments, it will be LeBron time. And I get the need to be needed, or the desire to be needed. I get that. Like it's important for a guy like LeBron and to be valued. Like there's a real role for him there in terms of leadership, and I understand why he chose that.
Uh, I want to talk to you about another LA basketball story, the Kawhi Leonard
Okay.
investigation that's going on.
Yeah.
Pablo Torre broke the story and it's followed up a ton of times. Is there, from your perspective, there certainly is there. That was going to be the question that I asked, but I want to ask a different question. Like,
Yeah.
are there going to be changes that come from this, or beyond, like maybe a fine here or there? Is something going to happen to, in your opinion, is Ballmer in jeopardy? Anybody else potentially in jeopardy from this investigation that is ongoing?
Yeah. I mean, I think. I think there's a lot of pressure on Adam Silver to get to the bottom of this, to at least have a punishment that and I want to back up and say um, there's a lot of pressure for transparency here. People want to know whatever the investigation finds. They're going to want to see the report. They're going to want to see what's in it. And for very good reasons, Steve and the Clippers are not going to want all their laundry out there. They don't want people reading through. This isn't discovery, right? This isn't a court case. Like you don't file everything or you don't present it in court. And so I think that is going to be a really interesting part of this, John, which is how much of what the investigation finds is going to be put out there and palatable. Because, okay, there's two scenarios. One is that they find something and there are penalties. People are going to want to understand what they found. And the other scenario is that they don't find enough, and there are no penalties or light penalties or whatever it is. Well, either way, the public, who has been very, interested in this story ever since Pablo's podcast, um, the subsequent reporting, and I remember when I sat with Ballmer right after Pablo's story came out. The first question that I had for him, which was, I just took his statement. I said, you say in your statement that these accusations are provably false. Okay, so prove it. And it's not how justice works, right? Right? You're supposed to be, innocent until proven guilty. But in his statement, he said they're provably false. And I think this is really just the core of what we're talking about, is because of how compelling Pablo's reporting was. Um, there's this desire for everyone to be able to digest the investigation and whatever it finds, one way or the other. And so there's a lot of speculation, right? Like, who would be in? Would it be Steve, who's in the line of fire? Would it be lower level people? Would it be someone like Gillian Zucker, who is the president of the Clippers? Would it be Lawrence Frank, the GM? There's a lot of other assistant GMs there. Like, who is there a smoking gun? We'll have to wait for the investigation. But my question as a reporter is, how much are we going to be able to know? Like, are we going to just have to take Adam's word for it? Are we going to get a copy of the report? But do we deserve that as the public? I don't know. Is it fair to the Clippers one way or the other? And these are all the questions that I think remain unresolved. And it's, if it's, there's an analogy that people have used, like, salary cap circumvention is an extremely serious charge. It's also very hard to prove. Like, you have to prove not just that Kawhi got a lot of money from aspiration, or that's more than his market value, and they also got money from, that you can't just connect two things. You actually have to show causation. Um, and you have to show, like, someone from the Clippers directed this company, Aspiration, or Daktronics, or other companies, to give Kawhi this money as a way to get him more in his salary, as opposed to just making the introduction and letting the two trains run on parallel tracks. Like, it's a really hard thing to prove. If they can't prove that, are there lesser issues? Is it lack of control? Is it are there slaps on the wrist? Are there? I don't know. I don't know where we are with it. But my biggest question is, what level of transparency are we going to get?
Do you have any sense of why this investigation is taking so long? Because typically, once Adam Silver says, "Oh, we're going to investigate," it's going to be wrapped up within a month or maybe two. I mean, this seems to be going on for
No, I actually
much
disagree.
much
I
longer
think
than I
this is actually
expected.
short. Like, I mean, I cover court cases. You cover legal things? They take a long time, and that's with attorneys and prosecutors having subpoena power. These investigators don't have subpoena power. The only people who have to talk to them are the Clippers, okay, or people inside the Clipper organization. Nobody else outside the Clippers have to speak to them. They don't have real power here. Um, there's a little bit of leverage with like big companies that are involved in this. Aspiration is bankrupt. They're not a real company anymore. So I don't know what records you can get. Some of them have been in the court cases, but the other sponsors, like Daktronics or other sponsors, I know they've looked at others deals and stuff. Uh, they don't have to share anything. The only leverage they have is, okay, if you want to be in business with the NBA, you got to keep things. You want them to feel like you're cooperative. But there's no subpoena power here, which means you can give them some things. You don't have to give them everything. Like, I don't think they don't have to anything compelling Dennis Robertson, the infamous Uncle Dennis. They don't think they have anything to compel him to speak to them. Mitch Frankel, the former agent now, I guess he has to talk to them if he wants to still be an agent. Um, but they don't have a lot of teeth here, and the reason why I think it's taking a long time is because they don't, and they really want to get it right. They want to get as much as they can, and so it's a hard job to do this when you don't have that power.
Great points. I want to wrap up with the Nets moved from New Jersey into Brooklyn, and this started to get some
Okay.
star players and started to make some inroads. And the Knicks were run so terribly for so long that it was, there was a legitimate story about like, oh, are the Nets going to ever overtake the Knicks? And then you see what happened the second the Knicks go and have a world title run. They take over New York like no team I've ever seen. The same thing in LA with the
Yeah.
Clippers and with the Lakers. Do the Clippers
Yeah.
is there any scenario that you see where the Clippers can become at least on par with the Lakers in that market?
No. Flat out no. Like, even
Good
at their
answer.
most popular, when the Lakers were really yes, I mean, you asked a yes or no question and I said no. um I mean, I've lived here my whole life, and we have radio, and they'll you can study listening habits and what gets people to tune in, and when they turn the station off, and like literally, um the top, like, what do people like to listen to, and the answer is the Lakers, the Lakers, the Lakers, and the Lakers, and then maybe a little Dodgers, and then the Lakers again, but only how they can, right? I mean, it's literally like that's the level of interest in the Lakers here. And so, I mean, this is when, I remember when Chris Paul was traded to the Lakers, that David Stern undid that, and then he ended up going to the Clippers, and it was the start of Lob City, right? This was the best era of Clipper basketball. I had a great time covering that. Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Chris Paul, JJ Redick was one on those teams. Doc Rivers was the coach. They were very popular, and I think there's a generation of kids that grew up with Lob City, and so they like the Clippers and all that. I grew up in LA. I like both teams. I mean, I always thought the Clippers were kind of fun. I love Ralph Lawler, like that was my guy. Um, but they were the Lob City Clippers were nothing compared to the terrible Lakers at that time. Like terrible. Like Chris Paul went to Dodger Stadium and got booed. Like Blake Griffin would get booed. Like this is a Laker. It just is. It's a Laker town, and
It
the
just
Clippers
is.
have a section of
Yeah.
fans, and they're passionate and they're growing. I think they've done a good job building that brand up of this sort of underdog team. But you're just never going to pay. It's like New York, the Mets and Yankees, like the Giants and Jets. I guess there's the Giants and Jets maybe a little closer, but I think it's I don't think there's anything that, even if they won a
Mm.
title, I mean, that's one, and the Lakers have 17. Like, it's just not,
Yeah, there you go.
there's just a level of
Ramona,
interest in the Laker team that you can't build.
Ramona, you have had such a busy week. Can't thank you enough for joining us. Got to wrap it now, but thanks a ton. It was
Yeah,
really great talking to you. We'll see you soon.
you too. Anytime, John. Thanks.
Thanks to Ramona Shelburne. Thanks to Ben Cafardo for setting this all up. Most importantly, thank you for listening to the Varsity and Odyssey podcast in partnership with Puck. Thanks to Puck's executive editors, Gabi Grossman, Ben Landy, John Kelly, the great Bob Tabador from Odyssey, and our partners at Nesson, Matt Kolpitz and Jenny Aruda. If you like this podcast, make sure to sign up for my newsletter. It's also called The Varsity. Go to puck.news, use the code word The Varsity, all one word. You'll get a 20% discount. I will see you on Wednesday.